How's it going, everyone? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have the mid-season roundup for the UBA Season 4. We've never been able to do this because there's never been a bye week. A planned bye week, I guess I should say, in any of the draft leagues I've been in. So, or the seasons, I guess. So yeah, we're gonna be going through the teams, how they're doing throughout this season, sort of some talking points for them, things like that. Their personal, Pokemon performances like MVPs and stuff like that, and then their future in the second half of the season. Be sure to check out all the coaches in the description down below. The matches are every Saturday and Sunday, so be sure to check out all the coaches so you not miss a single one. If you guys want to see more from me and more from the roundups and stuff like that, by all means, be sure to subscribe and do all that good stuff. And yeah, so for a second, I was going to I kind of read my notes, that's why I said that. I originally was gonna go from first to last, but I thought about it for a second, and then I got a second opinion from my sister, and I figured it'd be better. I decided it'd be better to just go from last to first. So we're going in standings order from 8th to 1st. That's how we're gonna be going through all the teams, all the coaches. And just that's how we're gonna talk about them. So with all that being said, let's get into it. We have our very first coach in 8th place, the WAL Wingulls, coached by Nate Tube, who are currently 0-4 with a -17 KD. In week 1, they had a loss against Snowdonian. They lost 6-1. In week 2, they lost to LA 6-0 sweep. In week 3, they lost to Colchester 6-1, and in week 4, lost to Team Coin 2-1, or I guess 1-2, however you want to look at it. But point being, they're 0-4 right now. But the obvious asterisk being that Nate is running a metronome team, so it's not really up to him how this team performs. It's a lot of luck that's involved, not really him. Some of it's really just the prep and the Terras, which it did kind of benefit him a couple times, so that's good. But to quickly look at his Pokemon, his MVP so far, I've actually picked Gengar over everything else because, like I mentioned, his Terra Normal ultimately led to its only kill against Mudsdale, which prevented a sweep against Pidge. Because Pidge was very much set up with that Mudsdale, and that thing was ready to just run through the rest of Nate's team. And Gengar actually stopped it, and with the Terra and all that good stuff. And Gengar's kind of been his heavy hitter so far this season. His most underrated Pokemon so far, I'd say, is Palma. It actually did quite a bit of work against Pidge as well, and it also did a decent amount of work against Alan. So I'd say it's definitely his most underrated. And it's weird to say an honorable mention is a legendary, but it is Mew, I guess. Mew's Walton has 3 kills, so I picked the 3 Pokemon who all have kills. But I think it goes in that order: Gengar, Palma, Mew, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, you had us for a second there, Nate. All right, you had us for a second there. Luck with the metronome was just, it seems to be kind of trending upward. I know the results obviously weren't showing it, but he was getting a little more lucky and a little more lucky with each passing match. And the hype was really coming with just preventing the sweep. That's kind of where the hype for Nate was. And he did so in 3 out of 4 of his matches. But even when his opponent matched his metronome in week 4, his luck just wasn't there. And we talked about it. The only way Nate can realistically win a match is if his luck is at 99.99999%. And even then, there's still a small chance he's gonna lose. Like, it's just hard because of RNG, and you can't fault Nate by any means. It's not his fault. This is all luck. Like, it doesn't make him any less of a good coach, but this is just not his season. It is what it is. He chose to do a gimmick. It's a tough gimmick to use because it's not in your control. And yeah, right now his wins are really coming from preventing sweeps, and that's okay. It's a bit to be expected, and that's where the hype is. If he manages to pull off a win, I will lose my mind. But with that being said, I hope I'm wrong for these next 3 matches, but I think this might be possibly the worst 3-game stretch that he could have gotten, that the Metronome King could have gotten. All 3 of these coaches are not as nice as Alan, and they all 3 of them need wins, and they need the KD, so I would not be surprised if this got ugly really fast. So in week 5, he has the Miami Palafins. In week 6, he has the Detroit Pyroars. And in week 7, the Montebello Morpeko. 2 of those teams will be going. Well, actually, all 3 of those teams will be going over next. So not in that order, but they are the next 3 teams we're going over. So like I said, they all need wins. They all need the KD. Don't expect them to be as merciful as Allen. This could easily be like an 0-18, 1-18 stretch, and it might not be the most entertaining matches, especially with Pidge exposing the taunt and doing all that stuff. Like, yeah, it could get very ugly very, very, very fast. So a really terrible 3-game stretch. I mean, yeah, I feel like the people who might have given him an opportunity with the metronome, his couple of buds and Jakey and Pidge, and then, you know, obviously Alan gave him the metronome as well. They're all gone. Like, these last 3 coaches, they will have no mercy. So it is not going to be pretty for Nate. I mean, I would talk about his playoff scenarios, but right now, as it stands, expect the 8th place finish. If he somehow manages to pull off 1 win and Detroit doesn't win at all, then Walton will actually be 7th, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, like I said, all 3 of these coaches, they know Nate's weakness now, and they will expose it ruthlessly. So I'd say maybe out of those 3, Max is the only one that might give Nate a chance. But yeah, no, I'm sorry, Nate. I see the 8th place finish in the first round dip. It is what it is. You know, that's how it's gonna shake out. All right, moving on. In 7th place, we have the Detroit Pyroars, whose coach is Gamer Views, who is also 0-4 with a -16 KD, so only 1 better than the Walton Wingulls. In week 1, he had the Montebello Morpeko, lost 4-6. In week 2, he had Team Coin, lost 1-6. In week 3 versus Snowdonian Frosmoths, he lost 0-6. That was a sweep. In week 4, lost to Miami 4-6. So far, their MVP in terms of the MVP is just pure from a statistical standpoint is Quackable. It's got the most kills. He has a couple other Pokemon that are -1 KD, but Quackable has 3 kills, 4 deaths. It's got the most kills on his team, so clearly his MVP so far. It's just kind of been doing the brunt of the offensive work, although it's just not enough really at all. The most underrated Pokemon, it's weird to put again a legendary here, Lugia with 2 kills, 4 deaths. Lugia hasn't really been able to get going too much in this season. An honorable mention I throw out to Rotom purely because of the way it stopped Solgaleo. The miss from the Facade that, you know, prevented Rotom from dying. It was able to Thunder Wave with Solgaleo and do massive damage on the Solgaleo, basically leading to its death. Was a huge stretch for Max in that match, and potentially gave him like a way back in and a way to win that one. He lost, but you know, it made the match closer than it probably would have been. So that was big. That's kind of why I threw it in the honorable mention slot. But this just has not been Max's season so far. He's just struggling to get one on the board. Granted, it hasn't been the easiest schedule in the world, but he's not looking too hot. He's got quite a few mistakes throughout these first 4 weeks. He put on a decent show in week 1, but Team Coin was able to just shut any of that momentum down in week 2. And then disaster struck in week 3 as Jakey just meticulously ripped apart Max in a 6-0 sweep. That certainly does not help the confidence and is not at all what Max needed in week 3. However, despite a lot of Miami's struggles in week 4 kind of being self-inflicted, he did manage to push Alberto pretty far, further than I personally thought. So there's clearly signs of life. It's not like he's a terrible 0-4. It's just it's not where he, you know, usually is, and kind of where we expect him to be at this point. I think Max can benefit the most out of all the coaches from this little extra week, which makes me a little nervous because I do have him next. And he can straighten up for the second half of the season. It's not the easiest road, obviously, to try and repeat his championship appearance, but I trust in Max. And again, we had decent expectations of him coming into the season. So I think he is capable of turning it around. It's just, it might not happen in the regular season. Who knows? Maybe in the playoffs he'll get a crazy win and go on a nice run. So I think he's capable of turning it around. But it starts with week 5 versus myself, the Alien Inferno, as I just mentioned. In week 6, he'll be taking on the Walton Wingulls, which should be a win for him. And in week 7 versus the Colchester Celtics, which is not a fun matchup at all. It's not an easy route. It's not an easy route to try and claim his first win. But realistically, Max at worst in this 3-game stretch should go 1-2. Anything else would obviously not be ideal. If he somehow drops to 0-3 in this stretch and 0-7 on the season, I mean, holy! He matched Walton's metronome, or just something went seriously wrong in that match. Like, he realistically should be going at least 1-2, but I think he can still put up a fight. He's shown that he can put up a fight. It's just it just hasn't been there. You know what I mean? He needs to just kind of, I think the extra week will just help, the point being. So we'll see how he performs in the second half of the season. Playoffs, if he goes on a run, let's say he wins all 3 of these matches, he does have the potential to hop into the 4th, 5th slot, which you know, it is good. If he loses, let's say he goes 1-2, he can't go any higher than 7th, because everyone above him has at least 2 wins. So if he ends the season 1-6, he's guaranteed 7th. So a 1-2 stretch would not be great because he'll have to play the second place team in the league, and that's not going to be a fun matchup for him. 2-1 makes things a little bit better. He'll go 2-5, but he's relying on Montebello and Miami both losing. Montebello, Miami, and Colchester. He's relying on any of them to lose their remaining matches, because that's really the only way he'll be able to climb above them. So if any of those teams win at least one match, then Max would need to win out to hop above them. So yeah, it's a very tough road, and realistically it's looking like a 7th, maybe 6th place finish at most for him right now. But we'll see with that first matchup. We'll see what he can do, and like I said, I think Max can turn it around, especially in the playoffs. So we'll see how the Detroit Pirates carry on. In 6th, we have the Miami Palafins, whose coach is LionheartPlays. He's currently 2-2, sitting with a -3 KD. In week 1, Miami lost to LA in a 6-2 fashion. In week 2, they beat Colchester in a 6-4 fashion. In week 3, they lost to Team Coin, very unfortunate match, in a 6-3 fashion. And in week 4, beat Detroit in a 6-4 fashion. So far, the MVP for the Miami Palafins has been Chin Pao. It's got 8 kills, 3 deaths. It's actually been very solid offensively. In all the matches where it has gotten 3+ kills, he has won. So in the 2 matches he got 3+ kills, Chin Pao got, I believe, 4 in the first one, 3 in the second one. So it's clearly an offensive mainstay for him. His Palafin just hasn't really been a factor too often, or really at all. So that takes away a lot of offensive power from his team, and so the burden has kind of fallen to Chin Pao. I think Umberto at one point told me, he's like, yeah, Chin Pao hasn't really done a whole lot. I was like, what? I was like, it's your highest kill Pokemon, right? He's like, wait, really? I was like, yeah. And I told him, and he was like, oh, never mind, I love you, Chin Pao, I take it back. But yeah, Chin Pao has been great for him. Most underrated Pokemon, I would absolutely say, is Glamora. Glamora has 3 kills, 4 deaths. I feel like it's just done a good amount of work in all of his matches. It kind of has saved him a couple times from things getting really ugly, and it's done some good work for him, I would say. It's got more kills than a lot of his other Pokemon, so that's not bad. Honorable mention, I'm mainly doing this because he's going to hate it. It's Clefable. I'm going to say it's Clefable. After week 1, he vowed to never bring it again this season. He brought it in week 4, and it won him the match. It 1v2'd Max's last 2 Pokemon and handed him the win in that one. So I'm putting it here because of the little redemption arc and to make Humberto a little bit mad. But yeah, this season probably did not get off to the start that Humberto wanted. It was a match where he played not like his usual self. He's using strats he doesn't normally use, and it just seemed to be like he was in his own head. Then he was able to show off a much better performance against Pidge. Yes, Humberto historically has that matchup on lock. They do have banger matches, but Humberto usually walks away with the win in that matchup between those two. And but regardless, it was an equally good opponent that he put up a really good performance against, and he walked away with a great win in week 2. And then through week 3 happened, where the first half of the match, he was in control, but a really unfortunate misclick threw away a very winnable match for Humberto. And he could just as easily have the same record as Team Coin right now when you think about it. It's wild to think about. He could also be 3-1. Same with Team Coin, same with LA Inferno, same with Snowdonian Frosmoths. It could be a 4-way tie at 3-1 right now if that misclick doesn't happen. So he just seems to be getting in his own way. He just seemed to be getting in his own way and in his own head for the first few weeks there. And his season so far has just been the truest definition of a roller coaster season. He started with a loss, then won, then lost, then won. He got a much needed win against Detroit in week 4 heading into the break, so that could be big for the confidence, especially because he has the WAL Wingulls coming to town in week 5. I'm sorry, Nate. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm shitting on you, but unfortunately that's just the case right now. I hope you don't take offense to it, but realistically all the coaches should be beating Nate. All the remaining coaches that are on his schedule should be beating Nate, so it's nice that Humberto gets him in week 5. So it's immediately after the break. He can string together a couple of wins before he gets into weeks 6 and 7, which are going to be a little tough. They're not going to come as easy. He's got Montebello and Snowdonian Frosmoths. You have to fight against some strong teams to make sure he can get a higher seed in the playoffs, especially that matchup against Montebello. That's becoming an increasingly more important matchup for both those teams, because that's going to decide, I think it'll decide like 5th, 6th, or potentially 4th, 5th, something in that range. And that's a huge difference, facing the 3rd seed versus facing the 4th seed. That could be a massive change. And these coaches might not want to face whoever's going to be in the 3rd or 4th seed, depending on how it shakes out. But yeah, Miami really needs to at least go 2-1 in this stretch. A 4-3 record will get them like the 4th seed, 5th seed, something like that. 4th, 5th doesn't really matter because they play each other in the playoffs, so it doesn't matter if you're 4th or 5th. You're playing the same opponent regardless. So ideally, he will land in that range by going at least 2-1 in this stretch, which I think he's capable of. Definitely that week 7 matchup is going to be the toughest. We'll see how Jakey performs. We'll talk about him later. We'll see how Jakey performs against Pidge, but that is definitely going to be the one to watch in that 3-game stretch. But well, actually, no, I take it back. I did say Montebello and Miami could be a really important match for both those teams, so that might be the one to watch. But if Miami's heading into the match against the Frosmoths, 2-0 in this little 3-game stretch, then that definitely becomes a big match to watch, because that means Humberto's catching fire. He's catching a streak. He's getting a streak going, and that would be really good for Miami. So not out of the woods. I think he needs to stop getting in his own head, and we'll get the Humberto that we all fear. Just play with some confidence, play without fear, and which we'll see if he can do that. But I think the win against Walton will really help against that. So we'll help with that. So yeah, Miami in 6th on a relatively upward trend. All right, in 5th, we have the Montebello Morpeko, whose coach is Mr.Toast, currently with a neutral KD 0. In week 1, they beat the Detroit Pyroars 6-4. In week 2, they beat the Snowdonian Frosmoths 6-4. In week 3, they lost to the Inferno 5-6. And in week 3, they lost. Did I say week 4? Week 3, they lost to the Inferno 5-6. In week 4, they lost to the Colchester Celtics 3-6. So far, the MVPs, and this is the only team I think I did 2 MVPs for. The MVPs for the Montebello Morpeko have been Rillaboom and Kingambit, both with 4 kills, both with 3 deaths. And I didn't just put them both because they were tied. I think both of them have done a ton of really good work for Montebello. And have just been really good for his team. Carlos is very used to those Pokemon. He's used them a couple times now. It's very clear he understands them a lot more than a lot of the other Pokemon he has. But it's a little bit of a problem. We'll go over it in a second here. So his most underrated Pokemon, I also put 2. I put Zoroark, Hisuian Zoroark, and Inferno, both with 3 kills. Zoroark has 2 deaths, Inferno has 3 deaths. You might be wondering, well, clearly Zoroark has done a little bit better, right? But I think both of them have just been kind of nice support Pokemon that get a kill at the beginning of the match and then are able to just kind of like just be hitters. That's kind of what's been their job, support offense type deal. And they've done it pretty well, relatively well in his matches. They've helped him prevent worse losses, I think is kind of the key there. But the honorable mention is crazy that I'm putting a freaking legendary, a pseudo legendary as well, in this slot. Dragapult with 3 kills, 3 deaths. Dragapult has done some good work for him, but I think that's the problem. This is one of the major talking points for Montebello, is the fact that Dragapult is outslaying his other 2 legends in Mewtwo and Zekrom. And Dragapult, you heard me right, Dragapult only has 3 kills, which means Mewtwo and Zekrom have combined for less than that. They combined for 1 kill. Mewtwo has not gotten a kill. Zekrom has 1. That's a problem. That's a major problem. I understand, like, you don't want to rely too much on your legends, right? That is also a thing. You don't want your legends to be, the end-all be-all for your team, but when they're doing nothing, really, and they're not contributing too much, it's bad. Rillaboom and Kingambit have the same amount of kills as all 3 of Carlos's restricted picks combined at 4. Dragapult, Zekrom, and Mewtwo all have a combined 4 kills, and Rillaboom and Kingambit have matched that. Like, that's a problem. It's good that he's not overly relying on his legends, but it's also not good that they're not doing much in the matches. They're not contributing a whole lot. I think he has misplayed the Mewtwo a couple times, which is an issue, but yeah, that's a huge talking point. But 2 wins to start the season for Montebello was important. But it was really the way he played in both those matches that shined through. I would say that Carlos had control like 90% of both those matches. He would hand slight momentum with a little mistake, but he ultimately bring it back and walk away with a win in both those matches. But then week 3 happened, and he just made a major mistake in that match with the Primarina, the Terra, letting it die, losing Terra, losing Primarina without doing anything, and it ultimately costed him in the end, in my opinion. This would also follow through to his match against Colchester, just sort of the downward trend. Although that one was a little bit more up to RNG. I think he could have brought it back closer, but ultimately the RNG costed him in that match more so than anything, which really sucked. But this is a bit of a concerning downward trend considering the next couple opponents he has, because it's just like he's just making big mistakes that are just costing him matches and just He's just doing this, a little downward trend. He'll have to be on the top of his game to get wins over at least one of the next 3 coaches he's facing, or at least the next 2. He's going to have to focus up to make sure he keeps things in control for the playoff race, because like we mentioned, him and Miami are kind of just doing this, back and forth. So he needs to make sure he keeps pace. I don't think he wants a mid-pack matchup with someone at the top of the table or in that 4th slot, like 3rd, 4th, especially in his current form and with the mistakes he's making. So, yeah, in week 5, he's got Team Coin, who are undefeated, of course, and that should be a good matchup. I don't expect Carlos to make the same sort of mistakes that all of Team Coin's opponents have been making, which we will talk about when we get to Team Coin. But regardless, they're undefeated. So the confidence is there, all that's there. So that's going to be a hard one. Then he's got Miami. That's also going to be a difficult one because Carlos's record against the big 3 in the league, big 3 being the 3 coaches who have won championships in this league, in LionheartPlays, Pidge, and myself, is not good. Frankly, it's not very good. So, and he is 0-1 all time against Lionheart. So, and it was very dominant 0-1. So he needs to bring his A game in that one. He gets Walton in week 7, which should realistically be a win for Carlos. So he should at least go 1-2 in his stretch, which will lead to a 3-4 record, which should be about a 5th, 6th, probably a 6th place finish. So it's not an easy next couple weeks for Carlos. He's the first to take on the undefeated Team Coin after the break. Then he has Miami after. Like, he'll be able to get a good finish against Miami, against Walton, which should be which might be a necessary win by that point. Especially like if he can pull off a sweep, that might just be really important. But these next 2 matches are going to be really difficult. So it's not a good time for Carlos to be on a downward trend because his matchups are getting more difficult. But it's Mr.Toast. He always manages to come out with a winning record. He usually does. So we'll see. Heading into the playoffs, I expect a roughly 5th, 6th place finish for him. Yeah, somewhere in that range where he's at right now or one below. I could see Miami we're taking. I don't see him dropping below Detroit. I don't. Because, again, realistically, Montebello only needs 1 win, and they're guaranteed 6 at worst. So, yeah, he'll avoid the 1st, 2nd seeds in the first round of the playoffs. If he wins all 3 matches, he'll jump to 5-2. 5-2 is not a bad record, considering Inferno 3-1, Snowdonian Frosmoths are 3-1, Colchester Celtics 2-2, Miami Palafins 2-2. It would not be a bad record. Do I see it happening? Probably not, if I'm being realistic. The best I see him getting is a 2-1 record in this stretch. And the worst 1-2. If he goes 0-3, much like Detroit, that's a problem. So, Montebello Morpeko, 5th place, downward trend, but I mean, he usually ends with a positive record in the regular season. So he's a bit of a regular season merchant. So it'll really come down to how he performs in the playoffs and what kind of matchup he gets there. All right, now we get to the top half of the table. In 4th place, we have the Colchester Celtics, whose coach is PidgeGaming, currently sitting with a 2-2 record at +3 in the KD department. In week 1, they lost to Team Coin 6-3. In week 2, they lost to Miami 6-4. In week 3, they beat Walton 6-1. And in week 4, they beat Montebello 6-3. The MVP so far, I take it back. There is another coach I did 2 MVPs for. It is Dialga and Mudsdale, both sitting with 5 kills and 2 deaths. Pretty crazy. Mudsdale's keeping up with the legend, but I mean, I also I know this is the only coach I did this for. I also put Mudsdale in the most underrated Pokemon so far. So Dialga, we all know what Dialga can do. I don't really need to talk about it. Dialga's a strong ass Pokemon. I don't really need to, tell you guys why Dialga is so good. Mudsdale is obviously also a good Pokemon, but you can check it pretty easily. Pidge with Mudsdale I feel like it's never really excelled as much as it has this season. It's a little bit inflated by his match against Nate, but regardless, I think Mudsdale has done some good work this season. It's gotten really nice chip damage off on a few Pokemon, and it's done some good work. But Pidge has never really used it this well. He has used it well, right? Being that I think he's like the only person that's ever used Mudsdale, but he has used it well. It's just, I feel like this season it looks different. Like he's using it a much better way. And it's definitely performing on a different level than we've seen before. And I think that, sorry, I had to fix my notes real quick. And I think that trend will continue throughout the rest of the season. I had to fix it because I didn't have an honorable mention written, but this one's not so weird to be putting a legend in it because it also has been performing as well. And it's kind of like an honorary MVP. It's only one behind in terms of KD behind Dialga and Mudsdale, but it's Zacian. Zacian 5 kills, 3 deaths. Done a lot of good work. Zacian, Dialga, and Mudsdale all have 5 kills. They've all been doing good work. It's just the sort of everyone else just hasn't been performing well because a lot of Pidge's kills are clustered with 3 Pokemon, 4 Pokemon, with Mimikyu also having 3 kills. So I'm gonna throw Zacian in there, but it's kind of an honorary MVP more so than an honorable mention. But the start of the season was definitely worrying for Pidge as he just couldn't seem to get off any real semblance of a strong start. An okay start against Miami was just not enough to do much, and a prep error against Team Coin was just costly. He just didn't look like Pidge from top down, from pre-match to end the match. Although we all know about Pidge's slow starts, right, to regular seasons. It's pretty common for him. It's not anything new. He's made it to championships. He's won championships despite having slow starts at the beginning of the season. This one felt kind of different. And even when he got his first win against Nate, things still didn't feel too great. You know what I mean? Like, I think that all that did was hand him his first win. Not really any confidence in that one. But then he beat Montebello. And that was a much needed dominant win to just sort of, especially against like a good coach this season, a coach who had been good this season up to that point. You know, just bring up the confidence, and that should be enough for the Pidge effect to take place. Now, I've explained it before, but if you haven't heard, the Pidge effect, as I previously mentioned right there, Pidge typically gets off to slow starts in the regular season. He'll start 1-2, he'll start 0-3, and then bam, just goes on these crazy win streaks and, you know, makes it to at least the semifinal. So I think that is the sort of confidence boost he needs for the Pidge effect to take place, and every win that comes from here on out will just build his confidence more and more and more. I think he needed a proper win with no real hiccups to get things going. Yeah, maybe you could say RNG played a factor, right? It's really unfortunate that, you know, the T-Wave missed. We don't know how that would have played out in that Week 4 match against Montebello, but regardless, Pidge came away with a dominant victory. Nonetheless, he looked like vintage Pidge in that win, and I think I can comfortably say that he's back. I think I can say he's back, and he's absolutely trending upwards right now. Which is exactly what he needs heading into his Week 5 matchup against the Snowdonian Frosmoths, who are also trending upward and who are coming off of a ruthless victory. I promise I won't harp on it too much, Jakey. Yeah, who are coming off a really good victory. So this is the much needed time for him to get growing confidence, especially against a coach who is also on an upward trend. Then in Week 6, he'll be taking on the LA Inferno. And in Week 7, taking on the Detroit Pyroars. So a win in a tough Week 5 matchup against another coach who's trending upward will be the thing that really solidifies Pidge as the serious contender we know that he is. We just need to see him get there first, right? We need to see him get that win. Even if it's like a 6-5, he loses to Jakey, it's still not the end of the world because it's very clear that he is still extremely competitive and is a contender. I still consider him a contender, but to make him like a serious contender, I think a win over Jakey will really solidify that, or just a really close down to the wire match. This stretch is not very forgiving for him. It's not. Jakey and him have had some battles. Him and I have had some battles. Him and Max have had some battles. Like, this is not the easiest stretch in the world, but I think Pidge can walk away with a couple wins. If Pidge walks away with a 3-0 record in this one, again, that's like we talked about with Montebello. That's a 5-2 record right there. That is not bad at all. That should guarantee like 3rd place at worst. Especially beating myself and Jakey, that actually would probably push him to 2nd, realistically speaking. So a 3-0 record could potentially push him as high as 2nd in that one, and depending on how Team Coin plays, potentially 1st. A 2-1 record, 4-3 overall, will keep him relatively in the same spot, 4th, kind of 3rd to 5th range. An 0-3 record is not what he wants, because then he could drop as far as 6th, potentially 7th, depending on how Detroit plays. So you want to go at least like 1-2 if I'm Pidge. That guarantees you're not going to fall below 6. You'll avoid that cutoff. Again, all these 2-2 teams, Colchester, Montebello, and Miami, all want at least 1 win, because that prevents them from falling below 7th. Below 6th. So they all want to avoid that. You all want to get a win, and I feel like they all should at least get 1 win in all these stretches. But I think I trust Colchester the most to get more than 1 out of all 3 of their matchups. So Pidge has a very strong chance of getting a higher seed than where he's at right now. But it really comes down to that Week 5 matchup. How does he perform? How does he do? How does it go? How does it be? And we can potentially see Pidge as high as 2nd to end the season. So potentially 1st. You never know. But yeah, the Pidge effect, it's here, and it's going. Next up in third, we have yours truly, the LA Inferno, coached by Lenny Hermit, with a 3-0 record and a +10 KD. To quickly go through the schedule, in week 1, beat Miami 6-2. In week 2, beat Walton 6-0. In week 3, beat Montebello 6-5. And in week 4, lost to the Snowdonian Frosmoths 5-6. The MVP so far for the LA Inferno is that, gosh darn, Eternatus the Clan. He currently is sitting with 6 kills and 1 death. Who's been a bit of a beast lately, especially in the last couple weeks. The most underrated Pokemon so far, I would say, is my Gliscor, although you can kind of swap it with our honorable mention. You can make an argument one way or the other. Gliscor currently is sitting with 6 kills as well, but 2 deaths. It's just been doing some good work throughout all the matches. It did really, really well, I think, against... I mean, yeah, it did really well against Walton, but I think it did really, really well against Montebello, and it was just annoying. If I brought Acrobatics, it could have done even more, so Gliscor definitely has been an underrated Pokemon for me so far. An honorable mention, I'm throwing Salamence in there, although much like Zacian, it's kind of an honorary MVP. I mean, Salamence racked up most of its kills in week 1, but it closed that one out, so that was really nice, especially after a coach, especially against a coach like LionheartPlays. So obviously, I am the reigning champ heading into this season. I really wanted to try my best to leave just a really good performance on the table in week 1. I didn't really care whether I won or lost. It was just more so like I want to perform really well. Especially over someone I consider a great friend and a rival. I had to also even the score for season 1 because all time heading into week 1 we are 1-2, or I'm 1-2 against LionheartPlays, and I accomplished my goal. Came up with a pretty dominant 6-2 victory and followed it up with another statement win over the Walton Wingulls, sweeping them, the only coach so far to have swept them. And the misplays were fairly minimal. I'd say I made most of my misplays in the week 3 matchup against Montebello, and for the most part the ship was running smoothly. But man, oh man, week 4 just came to the strong start for my season just came to a screeching halt in week 4. It was a rough one. It was a tough pill to swallow, but it was the first loss of the season. Still not in the worst place in the world, so it's not the end of the world. But I definitely needed that break to just this extra week to just kind of reset the mental a little bit, cool off a bit, heading into the second half of the season. Although I will probably need some help along the way, depending on how this shakes out. So in week 5, we have the DET Pyroars, who I did say benefit greatly from the break, I think. Week 6, we had the Colchester Celtics, and week 7, Team Coin. It's not the best stretch in the world by any means, but if I can pick up where I was prior to week 4, I mean, I didn't even perform that poorly in week 4. I got hill stalled and still managed to make it only a 1-kill win, so for Jakey, so it's not the end of the world there. I thought you can definitely walk away with multiple wins in this one. It's just not gonna be easy by any means. So a 3-0 record here will push us to 6-1, and the worst I believe we'll be able to do is second, depending on how Team Coin does in week 5 and 6. We'll go more to Team Coin when we get there, but they're only 2 ahead of both the LA Inferno and the Snowdonian Frosmoths. So the KD's not entirely a huge factor as it stands, as in like he's not so far ahead with a 4-0 record that we can't catch up to him. So a 3-0 record that gives us a very strong shot for first place, but also should realistically guarantee second, third. Yeah, basically win out, and it's kind of up to how Snowdonian Frosmoths play, realistically speaking. You're hoping that Team Coin at least loses 2 in that stretch, and that would allow us to potentially take first. So 3-0 doesn't really guarantee anything, which is kind of crazy, but it does give us a very strong shot of landing in the first or second seed. A 2-1 record lands us 5-2, much like we talked about with the 2-2 coaches. Should realistically be around the second, third slot, probably not first at that point, especially if Team Coin ends with only 1 loss on the season or no losses potentially. And an 0-3 record would just be really, really... A 1-2 record would drop us about 4th, 5th, which again, that matchup doesn't really matter because 4th and 5th play each other, so it doesn't matter if you're 4th or 5th heading into the playoffs. But an 0-3 record would just be the worst. It could 3 and 4 drop. You're dropping potentially as far as 6. So that is not obviously where we want to be. You want to, I'd say, LA Inferno at least want to walk away with 2 out of these 3 matches, winning at least 2 out of these 3 matches. So ideally 3-0, but 2-1 is the realistic goal here for the LA Inferno. so far so good this season. Again, if they could pick up that form, sorry for the baby crying. If they could pick up that form, this could definitely be a strong end to the regular season for the LA Inferno. In second place, we have the Snowdonian Frosmoths, whose coach is JakeyXYZ. They are currently sitting with a 3-1 record, plus 10, exactly the same as the LA Inferno. They are ahead of the LA Inferno because of the head-to-head. They got the win over us, so they are ahead of us. In week 1, they beat the Walton Wingulls 6-1. In week 2, they beat the Montebello Morpeko, or sorry, they lost to the Montebello Morpeko 4-6. In week 3, they beat the DET Pyroars 6-0 sweep. In week 4, they beat the LA Inferno 6-5. Sorry, the baby. They beat the LA Inferno 6-5 to improve to second place, because I believe they were in third heading into that matchup. So far, the MVP for the Snowdonian Frosmoths is Fluttermane, sitting with 6 kills and 2 deaths. It's been quite good this season. It hasn't really gotten checked too often, but it's been doing some good work offensively for the Frosmoths here. Strong in week 3, came out with 3 kills in that one, but it's just kind of been getting nice chip and nice kill here and there, so it hasn't been too bad for the Frosmoths. The most underrated Pokemon so far is Garganacl. It's sitting with 4 kills and 2 deaths. Obviously, majority of that coming from his last matchup. It's in the last couple weeks, it's just done so much work for the Frosmoths, and it's hard to ignore its impact there, especially in 2, I feel like, kind of crucial matchups that Jakey really needed to pull off. So definitely underrated Pokemon, Garganacl for sure. Honorable mention, we'll throw it to Sneasler with 3 kills, 1 death. All 3 of those kills coming in the 6-0 sweep over the DET Pyroars. Yeah, it did a ton of good work in that one. I mean, it didn't really do anything in week 4. It kind of just burned the Terra, but I'm giving it the honorable mention because it was a huge part of that sweep. But after getting gifted a really good week 1 matchup, sorry, Nate, things got a little bit worrisome when Jakey lost to Carlos. It just seemed like battling the metronome left Jakey a little bit rusty, a little cold heading into the season, and seemed like he was destined to be, relegated to a slow start, but that was just plain wrong. I was wrong to think that. He came out in the next 2 weeks and beat both of the finalists from last season, sweeping one of them. Not me. It was Max. It was Max, not me. But sorry, but it really was a huge turning point for him. Getting that sweep, I think that's a huge confidence thing, because he sort of switched up his play style in that one, and although his methods of winning may not be ideal, it is clear he's willing to do whatever it takes to win, and that's what a championship mentality looks like. So like I said, he's been slowly morphing his play style over the course of this season, particularly these last couple weeks, and although he may have won both matches, there are a few cracks. He definitely still needs to iron out some things, but I think the break should help him think it out and improve this new play style he's adopted, because we've never really seen a Jakey like this. This is a far cry from the Jakey that we knew and we expected. But that loss against Montebello clearly sparked something in Jakey's mind, and he switched it up, and things are looking way better for him. And now he's just a serious contender for this title, and quite possibly the current favorite for the title heading into this bye week, heading into week 5. I think his next matchup is going to be the biggest test of the season for him, though. He has a week 5 matchup against the Colchester Celtics. That is going to be his biggest test of the season, in my opinion. If he comes out with that one with like a dominant win, Jakey's here. Jakey's here, and he's to be feared. If Colchester manages to pull off the win, then again, clearly it shows that Jakey still has some work to do with this play style he's adopting and adapting. If it's a close victory over Colchester, I think that also serves to benefit Jakey, because it just gives him more experience in those tense situations and those, one-on-one to win the match type scenarios. So there's really a lot of ways that this match could benefit him, even if he loses. It could just really help the mental a lot and the confidence. And then in week 6, he's got Team Coin, and in week 7, he's got Miami. So things are not going to get easier for Jakey on this win streak he's on, but he's clearly got the mindset needed to win just against just about anyone currently. But much like a couple other coaches, this is not a fun 3 match stretch here. It's not going to be easy for him to try and pull this off, but it's not impossible with the way he's playing currently. So looking at his playoff scenarios here, a 3-0, a 3-0 stretch should more than likely push the Frosmoths into first place. with the tiebreaker, the head-to-head rather, over LA Inferno, and what would be a head-to-head over Team Coin, that should secure them first place. Clearly their KD will have climbed by that point, and it should be higher than Team Coin's. So 3-0 with a decent KD should push the Snowdonian Frosmoths to first place. 2-1, as long as they don't lose to Team Coin. Like if they beat Team Coin, they'll need the LA Inferno to beat Team Coin, or the Montebello Morpeko to beat Team Coin. 2-1 could still potentially get them first. More than likely, we'll just keep them in second. 1-2, which would push them to a 4-3 record, could push them as far as 4th, 5th, and they fall into that mid-pack matchup. And then 0-3, obviously. They're not good. They could fall as far as 6th, much like the LA Inferno. A lot of the playoff scenarios for both of those teams are pretty similar. It's just that the Frostmoths have the head-to-head over the LA Inferno. So if it comes down to KD, a KD tie. So the rankings go off of KD first as the first tiebreaker. If they're tied, then the next tiebreaker is head-to-head. So Jakey will have that. I think realistically, the only team he needs to beat in this 3-game stretch is Team Coin. He needs to beat Team Coin and then walk away with a win either against Colchester or Miami, one of the two, and that should be enough for him to get a potential first place seeding. So yeah, really important for Jakey in this 3-game stretch. So we'll see how he does. I think he's on an upward trend, and he's clearly got a championship mindset heading into these final 3 weeks. So it's not the it's a hard road, but it's not impossible, basically, is what I'm saying. So look out for the Frostmoths. And finally, in our standings, in first place, we have Team Coin, whose coach is TheDoorman, sitting with a 4-0 record with a +12 KD. In week 1, they got the win over Colchester 6-3. In week 2, they got the win over Detroit 6-1. In week 3, they got the win over Miami 6-3. And in week 4, they got the win over the WAL Wingulls 2-1. Easily their MVP so far, and we'll go over the overall MVPs in a second here, but it's the overall MVP leader in the league, and the MVP leader for Team Coin here. It's Tyranitar, who's sitting with 8 kills and 1 death. A little bit inflated by weeks 1 and 3, much like Chimprow kind of in terms of kills. But regardless, it's been doing some good work. It's just kind of been annoying. It's come in 3 out of the 4 matches, not counting the Metronome one because Tyranitar doesn't have Metronome. So yeah, but it's been absolutely incredible for Team Coin so far. Most underrated Pokemon, absolutely the Pincurchin. I don't think it's really an argument there. I think, yeah, looking at his team, definitely the Pincurchin. Pincurchin has done some really good work in those first 3 matchups. It's been really annoying. It was his personal week 2 MVP. Like, it's done a lot of work for Team Coin. It's just annoying. It's hard to get rid of. No one's really been able to check it too well. Absolutely, Pincurchin. I really don't think there's much of an argument for anyone else. I think Pincurchin has been Team Coin's most underrated Pokemon. Honorable mention, I'm gonna throw it to Espeon. Espeon had some good matchups in weeks 1 and 2. Did the Magic Bounce in weeks 1 and 2, effectively won Allen both those matches. So Espeon for sure gets the honorable mention there. You can maybe flip Espeon and Pincurchin, in the honorable mention underrated. You can, but I'm gonna throw Espeon in the honorable mentions, keep Pincurchin in the underrated personally. Now, excuse me, Jesus, it is tough to really describe how Allen's season is going exactly. On the one hand, he is playing well. He's 4-0, and he's definitely bringing the potential out of some of his lesser-known Pokemon, again, like the Pincurchin. On the other hand, his opponents just haven't exactly given him 100% of their efforts. Week 1, Pidge, well, hold on, I'll go over that in a second, but it's been mainly mistakes that have handed Allen a lot in these matches. Do I think that makes Allen any worse or just straight up lucky? No, but I think it's a talking point heading into the second half of the season. What does week 1 look like if Pidge brings a properly trained team? What does week 3 look like if Humberto never misclicked? What does week 2 look like if Max doesn't make the mistakes he makes? Hell, what if Nate, gets really lucky with the Metronome and wins that match? I don't think these are major points against Allen necessarily. I just don't think he's been properly challenged outside of the first half of his battle against Miami. I think that was the only part of the season so far where he was seriously challenged and he was on the back foot, and Miami just made a really bad mistake and costed them that match. But Allen has definitely proven himself this season, and I'm not taking that away from him. He's had great tactics and planning, especially. I just want to see how he does in a match. where both guys are going 100%. You know what I mean? Like there's always been kind of a caveat in all of his matches. You know, even with Nate, he's using metronome. I get that Alan matched him, but it's all luck. You know, so far so good nonetheless. Like I will give Alan his credit again, particularly with his tactics, his planning, all that good stuff. A win is a win. There's only so much you can do, and you really you can only deal with what's in front of you. And so credit is most definitely due to Alan. Where was I? Baby was crying. I had to go. We'll just go over his next matchups here. I probably had a thought going. I'm sorry. In week 5, he's taking on the Montebello Morpeko. Oh, I was saying he's had some good coaches so far. So you got to credit where credit is due. Anyways, week 5, he's taking on the Montebello Morpeko. In week 6, he's taking on the Snowdonian Frosmoths, and in week 7, the LA Inferno. It's a tough stretch down the line. He's taking on the 2nd and 3rd place teams in week 6 and 7, respectively. So it's a tough stretch. It's not the easiest 3-game stretch, and I know I've said this for 3 coaches, but it's a really important 3-game stretch for Team Coin. They need to beat at least one of Snowdonian and LA, and preferably beat Montebello on top of that. So 2-1 record is ideal, and that should more than likely secure them the first seed. Not guaranteed, because potentially one of the other teams could, either Snowdonian or LA, could go on a run and and get that, because all the other coaches in the league all have 2 losses aside from the top 3. So Team Coin's main threats are the Snowdonian Frosmoths and the LA Inferno. So, and they take on both of them in week 6 and 7. So those matchups are really important. Again, they need to walk away with at least one against one of those 2, and the week 5 matchup against Montebello to secure to more than likely secure the first seed. At the very least, it will keep them in top 2, which is kind of where you want to be this season. So yeah, 3-0 record, you're in first, guaranteed. You perfect season or perfect regular season, you're good. You head into the playoffs 7-0. 2-1. You more than likely still walk away with the first seed. That means you beat one of Snowdonian and LA, and then you beat Montebello. Even if, honestly, the most ideal is lose to Montebello, beat Snowdonian, and beat LA. At least most, ideal going 2-1 is losing to Montebello, but beating Snowdonian and LA, which would secure him the first seed. So if he manages to walk away with at least wins, if he walked away with wins over Frosmoths and the LA Inferno, that should be the first seed guaranteed for Team Coin, regardless. A 1-2 record, and that means you lost to one of Snowdonian LA. You're risking one of them potentially hopping you and getting into that first seed. You risk possibly falling to the second seed, especially if he loses to both Snowdonian and LA. They both will have the head-to-head. They'll both have the same record, and more than likely the KD will be caught up at that point. So you do not want to lose to both of them. If you're going to lose to anyone, you want to at least lose to Montebello and one of Snowdonian or LA. You don't want your 2 losses in a 1-2 scenario to be against the Frosmoths and the LA Inferno. Not ideal, not by any means. An 0-3 scenario would just be the worst. The worst you could drop, I believe, in that scenario would be roughly like 4th, 5th. But it's a far cry from first, second. So you do not want to lose all 3 of your matches. I'd say the ideal scenario is 2-1, beat Montebello and beat one of Snowdonian and LA. The most ideal scenario is going 3-0, obviously, but like the more realistic ideal scenario is a 2-1 finish with wins over either the Frosmoths or the Inferno. Again, losing to both the Frosmoths and the Inferno is not ideal. Even 1-2, that's not good because you're allowing them to catch up to you. They both would they both wouldn't have to win out. They would both have to go at least 2-1 in their matchup. So there's not even enough pressure on LA and Snowdonian to go 3-0. They could go 2-1 as long as they beat Team Coin. So this top of the table is getting very interesting because we both play Team Coin, so it makes things really interesting. But yeah, Team Coin first place, 4-0, looking really good. Again, they can only deal with what's dealt in front of them, so you got to give them credit for playing well, and particularly, I think Alan's prep has been great. So as it stands for our current season MVP race, in first we have Tyranitar of the Team Coin with 8 kills, 1 death, as I mentioned. And second, we have Eternatus of the LA Inferno with 6 kills and 1 death, +5. Tyranitar's +7. Chin Pao of the Miami Palafins with 8 kills, 3 deaths, +5. And then we have Glyscore of the LA Inferno and Fluttermane of the Snowdonian Frosmoths tied for 4th with 6 kills and 2 deaths apiece, both +4. So yeah, Tyranitar in a pretty clear lead. I mean, Eternatus is chasing, so is Chinpao. They're not that far behind. Gliscor Fluttermane a little further behind, but I think it's really cool that my Gliscor is the only non-legendary / pseudo-legendary on that list. So that's really nice. Yeah, those are the top 5 currently as it stands. Now, to quickly go over my personal, who I think are the favorites to win it all. If we were to do odds, I mean, I would honestly, this probably sounds crazy, but it's just because we haven't played him yet. I think I'd put the Frosmoths and the Inferno over Team Coin to win it all. Again, we have not played Alan yet, so I think that's mainly why. And also sort of the matchups that Alan has had. So I think as it stands, I would go Frosmoths, Frosmoths, El Inferno, Team Coin for the top 3. I think the Frosmoths, with their last one, they become the favorites in my opinion. The El Inferno still right there. Team Coin obviously 4-0, they're right there. I just think we all need. I think we both the Frosmoths and the Inferno need to play Team Coin to really get a better understanding. Like once those matchups happen, we'll have a way better understanding where everyone stands. So I'll have those 3 in those order. In 4th, I would put the Colchester Celtics. Actually, I think the upward trend is really nice. We all know late season Pidge is a force to be reckoned with. So I think that upward trend continues, and the Colchester Celtics go at least 2-1 to finish the season. Next up, I'd have the Montebello Morpeko and the Miami Palafins. It's like this. Like Montebello Morpeko, Miami Palafins basically even in 5th and 6th, kind of where they're at. I mean, this is more or less almost the standings from this point on, but I'd have them right neck and neck. I think week 5, if Carlos wins week 5, right, we expect Umberto, LionheartPlays, to win against the Walton Wingulls. Like we kind of expect that to happen. So it really depends on how the Montebello Morpeko perform against Team Coin. If they lose, then I think the Miami Palafins overtake not only in the standings, but just in sort of everyone's mind who's the favorites, sort of the favorites race. But as it stands, I have them pretty neck and neck, pretty even. Then the DET Pyroars, then the Walton Wingulls, just kind of down there. Sorry, Nate. God damn, I really shit on you in this video. I feel so bad. I'm sorry. Yeah, so those are my current favorites. I think the Frosmoths, as it stands, are number 1, and I think they're not the clear favorite, but I think they are the favorite right now. We'll see how week 5 goes. Again, that matchup against Colchester could really shake things up, because then if the Colchester Celtics beat the Snowdonian Frosmoths, especially if they beat them like handedly, Colchester will hop up possibly into that number 1 or number 2 spot in terms of being a favorite to win it all. If Team Coin wins and it's a good matchup, then yeah, I could potentially see them also jumping up. So it really all is going to depend on week 5. Week 5 is going to be an interesting one, but that's how I have it currently. And that is everything up to date with UBA Season 4. That is our mid-season roundup. What do you guys think? Who are you rooting for this season? Who do you want to see win it all? Who are your current favorites to win everything? Let me know in the comments down below. And of course, be sure to check out all the coaches in the description. Subscribe to them so you not miss a single match this season. Again, they always go up Saturdays and Sundays. And yeah, subscribe, follow to all of them. All those beautiful people. If you guys want to see more of me, more of the roundups, be sure to subscribe to this channel as well. And if you enjoyed the video, and if you're here, be sure to like and subscribe. And of course, be sure to share this also with friends, family, everyone. Let the people know the link returns at. See you guys in the next one. Bye.